By morning, the story had a shape. Yasmin had not fled in panic. That had been the first misreading, the assumption of guilt performing itself as escape. What she had done was more surgical. She had removed herself from the palace before the photographs were found, which meant she could not be confronted, could not be made to answer, could not be caught in the frame of accusation. She had positioned herself outside the blast radius of her own device. This was not the behavior of someone who had acted rashly. This was the behavior of someone who had planned the exit before she planned the move. Karim understood this at 2 a.m, standing in his father's study with Tariq and the senior advisor who had found the envelope, going over the sequence of events with the controlled precision of a man who is furious and has decided that fury is a resource to be managed rather than expressed. He understood it, and he set it aside, and he worked the problem. The photographs themselves were not, strictly speaking, damaging. They showed Lara on the plateau, working. They showed Karim watching her work. They showed, in one frame, taken from a distance, clearly with a long lens, clearly without either subject's awareness, the two of them standing close together at the plateau's edge, not touching, looking at something on her camera screen. In isolation, in good faith, they were photographs of a host and a guest at an archaeological site. In the context of the note, the sheikh's son and the journalist whose kidnapping he arranged, they were a narrative. And narratives, Karim knew from long experience, did not require truth to travel. They required only plausibility and velocity. By 6 a.m, the photographs had been forwarded by at least one alliance delegate to someone in the capital. By 7, his father's phone had begun to ring. Lara heard about the calls from Tariq, who appeared at her door at 7:30 with 2 cups of coffee and the expression of a man delivering a situation report he would have preferred not to be delivering. "How bad?" she asked, taking the coffee. "The alliance delegates are unsettled. 2 of them are asking for a formal clarification of your presence in the palace." He sat down, which told her it was at least a 2-cup conversation. The note planted a specific idea, that Karim engineered your kidnapping to create a pretext for keeping you here, that your presence is compromising the neutrality of the negotiations. "That's insane," Lara said. "It's insane and it's effective," Tariq said, without heat. "Because it's not disprovable in the short term, not without revealing what we know about Nassim. And revealing that prematurely, before the legal proceeding is ready, gives him time to move assets, destroy evidence, disappear." He looked at his coffee. "Karim is with our father right now. It is not an easy conversation. Because of me. Because of Yasmin," Tariq said firmly. "There is a distinction, and it matters." She appreciated this. She also knew it was only partially true, and that the part that was partially true was the part that sat in her chest like a stone. She had come to Zafaran to photograph ruins. She had been kidnapped, rescued, temporarily married, and had somehow, in the course of 10 days, become the axis around which a diplomatic crisis, a financial conspiracy, a decades-long betrayal, and something she still didn't have a clean word for, were all simultaneously revolving. She was, professionally speaking, the most interesting story she had never intended to be inside. She was also, personally speaking, the reason a good man was currently in a difficult room, having a conversation that was partly her fault, and the fact that it was mostly not her fault was of limited comfort. Maya arrived 12 minutes later, already dressed, already caffeinated, already thinking. She sat on the edge of the bed and looked at Lara with the focused calm she wore when a situation had moved from concerning to requiring active management. "Options," she said. "I leave," Lara said. "Today. I go to the hotel, I issue a statement through my magazine saying the kidnapping was entirely by unknown parties. Karim's rescue was standard diplomatic intervention. I've been a guest while the security situation was assessed, and I'm now departing. Clean. Simple. It removes me from the narrative." "It also removes you from the proceeding," Maya said. "Your testimony, the authentication, your physical presence as a witness who can be deposed. The raw files are already with his legal team. The authentication is complete. They don't need me here for the proceeding." "Karim might." Lara said nothing. "I'm not talking about the legal case," Maya said gently. "I know what you're talking about." "Then say it." "Maya, say it." Lara looked at the window. At the courtyard below, the fountain going about its indifferent business, the morning light on the stone. "Staying makes it worse for him," she said. "Every day I'm here is another day the narrative has oxygen. Yasmin built this specifically to use me against him. The only way to diffuse it is to remove the things she weaponized." "You," Maya said quietly. "Me." The silence between them was the kind that meant they both understood the logic and neither of them liked it. "There's a flight at 3, Lara said. "I checked." "Of course you did." Maya's voice was not unkind. "Does he know?" "Not yet." She found him at 11, in the corridor outside the main hall, alone for the first time all morning. She could tell from the set of his shoulders that the conversation with his father was finished, and that finished did not mean resolved. He looked up when he heard her, and something in his face did the adjustment she'd cataloged by now, the shift that happened specifically when he looked at her, the thing she had spent 10 days pretending she didn't notice, and had spent 10 days noticing with complete precision. "I heard about the calls," she said. "It's being managed." "Karim." He stopped, looked at her properly. "I'm going to leave today," she said. "There's a 3 o'clock flight. I'll go to the hotel first, issue a statement, be at the airport by 1. The narrative dies when I'm not here to sustain it." The silence that followed was the most complicated one they'd shared, and they had shared several that deserved the description. He looked at her with an expression she was reading for the first time. Not the composure, not the almost smile, not the careful attention. Something more stripped than those. Something that lived beneath all the things he'd learned to wear in rooms full of people who were watching him. "You don't have to do that," he said. "I know. The situation can be managed without... It can be managed faster this way." She held his gaze. "And it's the right thing. You know it's the right thing." A long moment. He looked at the floor, then back at her, and she could see him working through it. The part of him that understood the logic, and the part of him that was not, at this moment, interested in logic. And the part of him that would always, ultimately, let the first part win, because that was who he was, and she had known that since the second night when he said it costs nothing, and she had almost believed him. "The dissolution papers," he said finally. "They'll be filed automatically at the end of the 7 days regardless." "I know. 3 days from now." "Yes." He looked at her for a long moment in the corridor light, the latticed window throwing its familiar geometric pattern across the space between them, light and shadow alternating. The same window from the first morning and all the mornings since. She thought about the plateau and the watchtower and the photograph on his study wall and the breakfast courtyard and the dinner terrace and the roof and the car outside the palace gates with the engine off and the afternoon light and tell me everything. All of it assembling itself in her chest into something she did not have a frame wide enough to hold. She thought, I came to photograph ruins. She thought, some things don't stay what they started as. She thought, the dissolution papers will be filed in 3 days regardless, and that is the correct and logical conclusion. And she was going to go home, and she was also, she understood now with a clarity that had nothing to do with logic, in love with this man. Karim, she said. Don't, he said, very quietly. I'm not going to say anything complicated. You don't have to say anything at all. I know. She looked at him. I want you to know that the last 10 days were... She stopped, found the right word. Real. Whatever happens with the papers and the proceeding and all of it, it was real. He held her gaze for a moment that she would, she knew, carry for a long time in the specific way you carry moments that divided your life into before and after. I know, he said. She nodded. She picked up her camera bag from where she'd set it against the wall. She walked toward the east wing to pack. She did not look back. Not because she didn't want to, because she knew, with the photographer's instinct for the frame that would hurt most, that if she looked back, she would see him still standing there, and she would not get on the plane. Maya, to her eternal credit, said nothing sentimental at the airport. She handled the check-in, managed the bags, acquired 2 extremely large coffees from the departures terminal, and presented one to Lara with the quiet efficiency of a person who understands that the most loving thing you can do for someone in pain is to be competent on their behalf. She did cry, briefly, in the security queue, which she attributed loudly to the recycled air, and Lara let her have it. Tariq had come to the airport. He had also cried, less briefly, and had not attributed it to anything, which Lara found both unexpected and unexpectedly moving. He had hugged her with the warmth of someone who intended it to serve as a message he couldn't send directly, and she had understood it and held on for an extra second, and he had said, very quietly, into her shoulder, "He'll figure it out. He's slow about some things, but he's not stupid." She had said nothing. She had boarded the plane. She was over the Mediterranean when her phone, on its last minutes of roaming before she switched it to airplane mode for the Atlantic crossing, received a message from a number she didn't recognize. It was a photograph. It took her a moment to understand what she was looking at, and then it assembled itself with the cold clarity of an image coming into focus. It was a photograph of her, taken from a distance, in the departures terminal of Zafaran City Airport less than 2 hours ago, standing in the security queue with Maya. The message beneath it contained no words, just a number. And the number was the exact amount of the ransom Hassan had been holding her for on the first night. 50,000. She stared at the screen until the Atlantic swallowed the signal. Then she put the phone in her lap and looked at the dark water below and thought, it isn't over. It was never going to be over from the airport. She thought, Yasmin isn't done. She thought, with a cold and absolute certainty that arrived the way good photographs arrived, fully formed, undeniable, I have to go back. Next chapter, the return. She landed in New York at 6 in the morning and was on a return flight by noon. Maya said this was the least surprising thing she had ever done. Tariq, when she called him, said only, "I'll tell him." She said, "Don't. Not yet.